The man most responsible for making the Ford GT40 work was denied victory at Le Mans, erased from Ford's official history, and was dead 2 months later. The car itself was never supposed to exist, born from a failed deal, built under open contempt, and so deeply flawed it could not survive a single race. What turned a $10 million embarrassment into the machine that broke Ferrari begins with one executive's humiliation in 1963. In the spring of 1963, Ford's top brass arrived in Maranello with an offer that should have changed automotive history. The plan was precise. Ford would buy Ferrari for $18 million, gaining control over the company's production, its coveted badge, and, most importantly, its racing operations. The draft agreement, written in purple ink, spelled out a future where Ferrari's legendary red cars would answer to Detroit. But Enzo Ferrari saw the clause that mattered most. Ford demanded the right to control the racing team, to hire and fire, to dictate which cars would compete and how the money would be spent. To Enzo, racing was not a business asset, but his life's work. The idea of surrendering that power to an American conglomerate was unthinkable. On the eve of the signing, Ferrari walked out. He sent a terse telegram to Henry Ford II. The deal was off. The American delegation, blindsided and humiliated, returned home empty-handed. For Henry Ford II, this was no longer a business setback. It was a personal insult. He issued a 3-word directive to his executives: "You will win." The goal was no longer partnership, but revenge. Ford would build a car for one purpose only: to break Ferrari at Le Mans. The GT40 project was born not from engineering ambition, but from the sting of public rejection. What followed would become a campaign driven by pride, fueled by money, and haunted by the question of what happens when corporate ego collides with the soul of racing. By late 1963, the new Ford racing program was already a target of ridicule. In the drawing rooms and pit lanes of Europe, the GT40 was dismissed as a brash American experiment, too heavy, too crude, too reliant on brute force. The Italian press called it a Detroit dinosaur, a machine built for straight lines, not the subtlety of Le Mans. Even inside Ford's headquarters in Dearborn, the project was viewed with suspicion. Senior managers questioned why so much money and talent was being spent on a grudge match, especially with no guarantee of a return. At the center of this fragile effort stood Roy Lunn. Unlike the brash executives or the racing celebrities, Lunn worked in the shadows. He had been handed a nearly impossible brief: build a car from scratch with a low roofline just 40 inches tall, a number that would become the car's name. The first prototypes were little more than modified Lola chassis, hastily adapted to fit Ford's massive V8. Even the car's identity felt borrowed, its DNA a patchwork of British engineering and American muscle. Lunn fought to keep the project alive. He maneuvered through layers of corporate doubt, defending the GT program to skeptical colleagues who believed the whole effort was a waste of time and money. Memos circulated urging a pause or outright cancellation. The GT40's future hung by a thread. Its survival depended on Lunn's ability to shield it from internal politics and external contempt. The car existed in name only, a low, unfinished shape, half accepted by its own creators, waiting for its first real test. The question was not whether it could win, but whether it would even survive long enough to try. The debut of GT101 at Le Mans in 1964 was supposed to be Ford's answer to Ferrari, a machine built from scratch to erase the sting of humiliation. But as the prototype hit the Mulsanne straight, the dream began to unravel. The car's nose lifted and dipped violently at high speed, a phenomenon the engineers called porpoising. Each time the GT101 reached above 200 kilometers per hour, the front end lost downforce, causing the entire chassis to pitch and threaten control. Wind tunnel data had missed the warning signs. The hurried development program, compressed into just over 2 weeks of aerodynamic testing, left the car with a fundamental instability that no amount of trackside adjustment could hide. Brake fade set in almost immediately. the steel drum brakes, chosen to save weight, wilted under the relentless heat. After only a handful of laps, friction dropped by nearly a third. Drivers Phil Hill and Bruce McLaren reported a dead pedal on the approach to the chicanes, forced to back off and nurse the car through corners that demanded aggression. Meanwhile, the transmission, a ZF 5-speed unit never designed for the brutal torque of Ford's V8, overheated and began to slip. Oil temperatures soared past 120 degrees Celsius, triggering gear lockouts and missed shifts. The telemetry sheets from that April test weekend record a steady climb in gearbox temperature and a chorus of mechanical alarms. This was not a single failure. The GT101 broke down as a system. Aerodynamics, brakes, and drivetrain each revealed a flaw that could not be fixed with a quick pit stop. By July, with more than $10 million already spent, Ford's executive committee gathered to weigh the future of the entire program. Memos from that meeting describe a car with fundamental downforce deficiency, brake fade, and transmission overheating that cannot be remedied without a major redesign. For some in the boardroom, the GT40 had crossed the line from bold experiment to public embarrassment. The question was no longer how to win, it was whether to continue at all. Carroll Shelby arrived in the aftermath, inheriting a program on the brink of collapse. Ford handed him the GT40 not as a reward, but as a last resort. Shelby's reputation was built on the Cobra, but this was a different kind of challenge. A machine with raw power and no discipline, burning through money and patience in equal measure. He knew that brute force alone would never conquer Le Mans. What Shelby needed was a driver who could feel what the car refused to say on paper. Ken Miles was that man. British-born, sharp-tongued, and unafraid to call out a flaw, Miles was more than a driver. He was a mechanic who understood the language of instability. Shelby gave him the car and the freedom to break it. Miles took the GT40 to Riverside and pushed it to the edge, not on sunny afternoons, but at night and in the rain, when the car's weaknesses revealed themselves. He ran high-speed tests approaching 200 miles per hour, listening for the tremors in the chassis and the whine of gears under stress. Each run uncovered a new defect. The car's nose still wanted to lift at speed, so Miles worked with Shelby's team to reshape the front and add downforce. Suspension settings were reworked, chasing a balance that would keep the rear planted through the fast corners. The brakes, prone to fading, got new cooling ducts and better materials. Miles insisted on gearing changes to keep the engine in its power band without shredding the transmission. Every adjustment was the result of lived experience, feedback from the seat, translated into engineering orders. By the end of 1965, the GT40 was no longer a corporate experiment or a rolling embarrassment. It was a weapon, sharpened by Miles's relentless corrections. The transformation was not the work of a committee or a myth. It was the product of a driver who refused to let the car fail on his watch. Ford reached the summit it had chased for years. 3 GT40s, engines battered but unbroken, rolling across the line at Le Mans in a formation designed for headlines. The image was pure theater, an American company, united, victorious. The story told in a single frame. But beneath the spectacle, the rules of racing delivered a different verdict. The car that crossed first, driven by Ken Miles, had started farther up the grid. According to the ACO's distance rule, it was Bruce McLaren and Chris Amon in the number 2 car, starting several rows behind, who were awarded the official win. The photo finish, orchestrated by Ford's PR machine, transformed a driver's relentless pursuit into a corporate tableau. Miles, the man who had rebuilt the GT40 from the inside out, was denied the place in history his work demanded. The victory belonged to Ford, but the justice of the moment slipped quietly out of reach. On August 19, 1966, Ken Miles was killed at Riverside during high-speed testing of Ford's experimental J car. The official report cited a catastrophic rear-wheel failure as the cause. It was an abrupt end for the man whose hands had shaped the GT40's transformation. Within days, Ford's public statements shifted focus to the upcoming season and the car's engineering, leaving Miles's name to fade from the official record. Over the next 4 years, the GT40 claimed 4 straight Le Mans victories, each one adding to Ford's legend, while the story of the man at its center was quietly set aside. Ferrari would wait more than half a century before tasting victory again. Chassis 1046 survives, auctioned as a trophy of American triumph, but its plaques rarely mention the driver who made it possible. The GT40's legacy is celebrated, yet the memory of Ken Miles remains contested, an absence at the heart of a story that prefers clean victories to complicated truths. Official legends still credit the machine, not the man who rebuilt it. As corporations rewrite history, recognition remains negotiable, even for those who make victory possible. In every triumph shaped by obsession, someone pays the price. The cost of erasure outlasts the roar of any engine. Share your thoughts below.